Hey friend, welcome to the video where I am going to revisit 1970 and do a review for the movie The Landlord, a movie that I can probably guarantee about 95 to 98% of you have never heard of before. But before I get into that, I would like to invite you, if you are a fan of the horror genre in particular, I invite you to check out my other channel, Movie Haunts. It's a channel that I am doing with my husband, Santo, and it is where we are going to be sharing our passion and our love for the horror genre, which is actually my favorite genre of all time. That's why it gets a channel all by itself. So I'm really excited for our work over there. And we've already started uploading. We're going to be doing our first reaction video here in a couple of days and have that uploaded as well. So I'm really excited for our work over there. So I'll leave that link in the description for you. Once again, that's Movie Haunts, and I hope to see you over there. All right, so a little bit about The Landlord and how I came across this movie from 1970. And up until just a couple of weeks ago, I had actually never even heard of this movie. But I came across it because of the Academy Awards series that I am doing here on this channel. And I started with 1970. I just uploaded a couple of days ago my movie review for Patton, and also taking a look at the 43rd Academy Awards, which took place in 1971 but celebrated the movies and acknowledged the achievement in film from 1970. And The Landlord was actually released in 1970, and The Landlord received a single Academy Award nomination for Lee Grant and Best Supporting Actress. Spoiler alert, she did not win, but turns in an amazing performance in a really great movie, and a movie I'm really happy that I saw, and a movie, by the way, which is really kind of ahead of its time in tackling a pretty heavy subject, especially at the time, and a subject that is still relevant today. Do you yearn for a life that's free from anxiety and stress? An enriching life where you are in total control of your emotions, thoughts, and actions? Self-control that allows you to make only the best choices for you while acting in complete confidence that your actions will yield the most positive of results. Well, if this sounds like you and you're ready to get your spiritual life in order, I'd encourage you to schedule a victory session with me. My victory sessions combine ancient spiritual teachings along with the science of numerology. Interpreting your unique numerical makeup will allow me to teach you how to use these teachings and implement them into your life according to your unique purpose and spiritual personality, producing incredible results while moving you forward in your spiritual path. To take your next step forward, all you have to do is reach out to me and schedule your very own victory session. Contact me today at the link in the description or comment section, and I look forward to hearing from you. So The Landlord is a 1970 comedy drama directed by Hal Ashby in his directorial debut. The movie tells the story of Elgar, a young, ignorant, privileged white guy who becomes a landlord of a Brooklyn tenement which is undergoing gentrification. Much to the displeasure of his mom, Elgar takes a liking to the low-income residents in his new building, especially to Fanny, and decides to fix up the building instead of evicting them. Even though there are some laughs, there are many thorny topics explored in The Landlord, becoming one of the first movies to explore the topic of gentrification. Okay, so if you're not familiar with gentrification, I don't blame you. I actually had to look it up after I watched the movie just so I could discuss it and sound like I knew what I was talking about for this review. Well, gentrification was a practice that was actually started over in Britain in the early 60s. And it was a practice of mostly people with money, upper middle class, the upper class, buying property and space in lower income neighborhoods. And the idea was that if they put all this money into these struggling areas, then those areas would be lifted up, the property values would also increase, and the city could succeed. Now, of course, there was a darker side to gentrification, as I'm sure you can imagine, where a whole lot of people, mostly minorities, all low income, were displaced because they couldn't afford to live in these areas anymore. So it was a very thorny subject. That happened over in Britain in the early 60s, about 10 years before The Landlord was released. And Landlord dealt with both of those pros and cons to gentrification and faced the topic head on. And this movie does not pull any punches. It's not the easiest movie to find. Well, actually, it is the easiest movie to find. It's just you're not going to find it on a streaming service or anywhere because it's right here on YouTube, at least for the time being. So if you are interested in this movie, if you've never heard of it, and this is a movie that you think you'd like to explore a little bit further, it can be found right here on YouTube. So anyways, with that being said, it is time for me to discuss the good, the bad, and the meh of The Landlord. All right, let's start off with the good. And like I said, this movie really doesn't pull any punches. So there is some pretty tough talk in there. There are quite a few racial slurs that are used throughout this movie. There really is not much of a filter on any of the characters within the movie, regardless of their racial makeup. I really enjoyed the movie for that aspect because I knew nothing really about the subject. I most definitely had not seen this subject covered like it had been covered in The Landlord. What struck me as really odd is that not a whole lot of people, even back in 1970 when this movie was released, got a chance to see this movie, and then it just kind of disappeared. And it is really a shame because of the thorny topics that the movie explores. It really is a thought provoking movie, which brings me to the screenplay, which is incredible. These characters have depth. They are so well written. Bill Gunn wrote the screenplay, did an amazing job. I don't know if I've seen any of his other works that he's written. Not a name that I'm overly familiar with. I'll have to check out his IMDb because if this is the kind of writer he is, definitely someone that I would like to research and watch more of the projects that he's worked on. Now, of course, a screenplay is only really as good as the actors who perform that screenplay, and the performances in The Landlord are absolutely stellar. Beau Bridges, the Bridges brother that I know the least about and have seen the least amount of movies with, he is so good in this movie. He really creates a multi-dimensional character, and I mean, he was very unafraid to show the man's negatives and, of course, show his positives. Lee Grant, who received a nomination for Best Supporting Actress, I think really got ripped off at the Oscars because from what I've seen, and I've seen all five of the Best Supporting Actress nominees and their performances now, and I actually would have voted for Lee Grant for The Landlord. She is in a great deal of the movie. She turns in a role and creates a character that I have never seen her play this type of character before. She really embraces the complexity of her character. A rich liberal who is also very racist at heart, but doesn't realize it because she thinks that she's all loving and that she's all giving, and because she treats her black butler decent, that she could not possibly be racist. So a very complex character. And Helen Hayes won for Best Supporting Actor at the 43rd Academy Awards for the movie Airport. a horrid movie and a nothing performance. One of the, I hate to say it, but the worst um, acting awards to be given out at the Oscars was in 1971 when Helen Hayes won for Best Supporting Actress. In my rankings, she is the fifth ranked actress in the category. And now Lee Grant is the top ranked actress from The Landlord, and unfortunately, a movie that very few people have seen. And the movie disappeared after 1970. It was never released on video. If it was released, it was pulled. I know I used to work at Blockbuster. I don't remember seeing this video on the shelves in the many years that I worked there.
Disappointed!
So I don't know if that was just a thing for those stores or whatever, but like I said, the only way to see it now is through YouTube. So the other thing that I found about The Landlord is that it is actually still relevant today. It was amazing as I'm watching it, just how it just reflects, it is a mirror of so many things that are going on in our world and especially here in the United States. And so, yeah, if you're looking for a movie that is both thought provoking and relevant to today, then The Landlord is definitely a movie for you. Okay, so let's take a look at the bad in The Landlord. Well, the only thing I could really come up with, and this goes back to how the movie doesn't pull any punches, is that depending on the audience member, this movie can be a little bit offensive or a whole lot offensive. And so if you are somebody who uh, really cringes in a major, major way when you hear racial slurs in a movie, and it's understandable. You may be just ultra sensitive to that. I would probably avoid The Landlord because with these thorny subjects are dealt with head on, and that includes the language that the characters use. Now, what about the meh of The Landlord? So the only thing that made me kind of meh in The Landlord really was that it does take a little while to get going. About the first half hour, 45 minutes, I was actually curious as to what direction the movie was going in because it wasn't quite clear. And it does take a little while to get to where it's going.
Slow going?
But once it does, and once all the character development is done and the plot actually starts moving along, this movie is incredible. It's not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but it is definitely a movie that I would say, now that I've actually watched quite a few movies from 1970, I do believe that The Landlord was one of the finest movies of 1970. Not an ultra challenging year, not a year with a whole lot of spotlighted movies, but in that year, I do believe The Landlord was one of the best movies of 1970. All right, so like I said before, The Landlord pretty much got ignored by the Academy when it came time to nominate for the Oscars for the 43rd Academy Awards, only giving Lee Grant the one single nomination that The Landlord would receive. Also, she received that same nomination in the Golden Globes same year, and the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. That was the only nominee that they gave The Landlord as well. So this movie was not highly nominated. It was critically praised, though. And even currently, it sits at like a 93% Rotten Tomatoes score. However, the box office was terrible. People just did not go out and find this. I don't know if it was a matter of marketing, whether the studio really believed in it. Was it a movie whose subject matter worked against it? Because I do have a feeling that could have been the case as well. I'm not really sure what the reason was. I do believe that this movie is a movie that deserves to be studied today. I do believe that The Landlord is an important movie that doesn't get discussed. And when I saw it, I really had no intention going in of doing a video on this movie. But given the subject matter of the movie, and I do believe it's a very, very important movie to watch, and maybe even a movie that I wouldn't say high school students should watch, or public school students, but I could see some college professors showing this movie to their classes for sure. I think The Landlord really has something to say. It had something to say in 1970, and I believe it still has something to say here in 2025. All right, so in closing, yeah, The Landlord is a movie that I would definitely recommend, especially if you are going into a deep dive on the Academy Award movies and nominees, especially if you're looking at the better performances over the past 50 years. Lee Grant really does turn in a really rock solid performance and deserved most definitely her Best Supporting Actress nomination. This is a movie that, I may not go back and rewatch, but it is a movie that I will always have fond memories of. And that is why I've given it a 4-star rating and highly recommended. All right, my friend, that is going to be it for this review, but I do thank you so much for watching and making it to this point. And if you haven't already, I really would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel as well as like and share this video. They're really easy clicks for you, really quick clicks for you, but they really mean the world to me, each and every one of them. Thank you so much. Also, tell me what you think of this video in the comments section. And also, if you have seen The Landlord, or if you end up seeing The Landlord because of this review, please let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. And if you would like to go ahead and support me as well as earn many rewards for yourself, I'd love to have you over on Patreon. We actually have one Patreon account for both of our channels, this channel as well as Movie Hunts. So there's 2 channels, one Patreon account, a 7-day free trial membership available for all tiers. So you are able to check out whatever tier you choose. You're able to check out many of the rewards absolutely risk-free. So we'd love to have you over there with us on Patreon, and we hope to see you there. But once again, thank you so much for checking out this video. It really has been a pleasure being here. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I look forward to seeing you next time. But until then, that's a wrap.